Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am doing a much long overdue meeting with two of my favorite ladies in the entire world, the beautiful ladies of the Double Feature podcast, Mika and Kira. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, doing good, Ken.
I've been able to work with you guys a couple times, but man, we have not been able to connect on this quite yet. But
I know
today is the day. Now, for those of you that watch the channel, you're already familiar with the Double Feature podcast. But for those of you that are here for the first time, let's educate a little bit. Kira and Mika are twins living and working in New England. When not working, they bond over their affinity for film, TV, and tea. Hot tea, not gossip. Not gossip. So, a little bit about you guys first off. We're going to talk about what got you into the horror genre here in a second. But what got you guys wanting to do the podcast?
Oh, you want to go? Well, I guess I can attempt to answer that. You can fill in the blanks if I miss anything. So basically, it's such a funny thing. Like Mika and I love film in general. We try to watch a new film on a daily basis. And so ideally, it's so funny, like we bond over a film, and when we watch it, we have this banter, usually right after, kind of discussing our likes and dislikes or our takeaways from the films we view. And so we just thought it would be a good idea because we love it so much to kind of create an outlet in which we could share that with other people. And it's an opportunity for us to kind of, I think, connect with others too, who share similar interests.
Love film.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as of the recording, you guys just released your underrated horror movies. So, and for those of you that haven't heard the podcast, I have the links for it right down here in the description, as well as the ladies' social media links and the link to the podcast on social media. So make sure you're giving them a follow. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check it out because they're very easygoing and they're very fun to listen to. Another thing I love is the Double Feature podcast isn't just horror, is it?
No. Yeah, because I particularly like Mika. I particularly love horror as my favorite genre, but we watch like all types of films. So we wanted a space where we can just
kind of highlight everything that we watch. It's so varied, so versatile.
Yeah.
I too am a horror fan. Mika, that's considered her favorite genre of all time. But I think the podcast allows us to kind of touch on horror, drama, an independent lens, rom-coms. So we get to watch everything we absolutely enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing. You're not nailing yourself down to one genre.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like I said, for me, Sledgehammer Horror is obviously all horror all the time. But for me, no other. It's like I do like rom-coms actually. Like if I had to say like my second favorite genre, it'd probably be rom-coms or chick flicks. Like I love The Notebook. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Like that's
classic.
legit.
Yes.
That's not me being like facetious. Like I genuinely fucking love that movie.
Yes, exactly.
But nothing ever talks to me or touches me the way that horror does.
Understandable. Yep.
I can just say, like, honestly, now that we're here and you know, by the time this airs, it'll be a little while out, but I just watched a movie last night that gave me the worst anxiety I think I've ever had watching a movie called The Boy Behind the Door.
Oh, yes, that was excellent.
The Shutter film,
Yeah.
That was exceptionally done well, yes.
I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I was like, look, just fucking kill the boys. I don't care. Just end my suffering. I can't do this anymore. But I can't recommend it enough. If you guys haven't seen The Boy Behind the Door, it's hard to watch.
Yes, it's very much
the subject matter.
And the villain, I will say, is not
shocking.
what you think. Yes, very shocking.
I was shocked when I seen the villain. It was one of those genuine,
very unique twists.
Yeah, so
that was even more
I will
scary.
Say it's one of those movies that definitely kept me on the edge of my seat, definitely kept me guessing, and definitely had me like this close to shutting it off a couple times because I was scared they were going to go there. I was like, don't do it. Don't make me shut you off, please. I need to know what happens at the end. But the great thing is when you guys do your lists or you guys dissect film, I love the fact that while you guys are twins, you can have two completely differing opinions. And have things gotten heated yet between you guys while discussing a film?
Oh, yes. Like Kim, we're very much still in the early stages of everything. And so we keep trying to figure out ways that we can better ourselves and better our content and provide a little bit more in-depth analysis and more in-depth opinion base. like sharing, but we definitely behind the scenes we have a lot of I don't know if I would say bickering,
not bickering, but I told Kira that's part of it. Like we're not always going to agree on everything, and sometimes like I can see something and she might not see it
differently,
and we can get into like, well, how don't you see that, or how are you getting what I'm getting? But then you got to realize, oh, you see different things, you know what I mean? And people.
And sometimes I think that might be good to share. Sometimes I think there is benefits even sharing that piece. We sometimes don't necessarily include everything in its entirety, but that might actually be something good to see.
I think so.
Well, I mean, and I think the thing is like not even just like in general, you know, we don't all think the same.
Yeah,
you know, and that's what makes it so much fun to have these episodes. Like if every single person watched A Nightmare on Elm Street as their first horror movie, this shoot would be boring as hell. You know, another Nightmare on Elm Street episode.
Yeah,
you know, so
exactly,
I love the fact that we all come from different areas, have different opinions, and started in different ways. So it is fun to have that healthy exercise of disagreement. If you agree all the time, shit's going to be boring. You know, so you definitely want to. I'm not saying like start punching each other out, you know, but it's definitely, you know, it is fun to get that out. And I love that. Like when me and Ashley can have disagreements on the films and what we agree, you know, what is our scariest moment or what is our most underrated film. It's fun to learn these things about each other, even though you guys have been together your whole lives.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's fun to learn these new things about each other as you're watching film.
I would definitely say so. And sometimes, not sometimes, mostly our takeaways vary so drastically. And we need to be better about saying like, sometimes we'll say, oh, you didn't get that, or you didn't, that wasn't your takeaway. And Mika will say, that was not my takeaway. This was my takeaway. And being okay, like, okay.
Even the most recent episode was pretty cool because I thought, and I said that in the podcast, I thought we were going to have at least one or two
of the same,
but we actually had all different
picks, which I like. Yeah.
It's always fun when a plan comes together and it works out that way. Because me and Ashley are the same way. Like when we do top 10s or whatever, we never know each other's lists.
Yeah, that's so great.
Because it takes the genuine fun out of it, because I already know what she's about to talk about. So why act like, oh, that's your number 5? I knew it.
Yeah.
You know, so I want it to be genuine and I want it to be real. And I love the fact that you guys are like that. You don't discuss it beforehand. You go right into it and you shock each other. That's the way to do it. So, and you guys can find that out by clicking these links in the description and following them. So, we know what you guys got going on in the future. And like I said, the podcast is in its infancy, but you guys are great to listen to. You know, I'm at work. I throw you guys in the earbud. I'll check it out. I love listening to you guys. And I hope you guys can continue to go and broaden your horizons into different genres. And it's so much fun to learn different perspectives. So I love doing that. But now I want to go to the past. And I want to talk about what got you ladies started in the horror genre. And what I love about this, you guys do not have the same first horror movie. So,
I know.
You first, Kira. Kira, your first horror movie was?
So The Exorcist. That is the very first horror film that I can recall bearing witness to in a horror film that still legitimately scares me to this day, regardless of how many times I muster the courage to rewatch it.
Absolutely. I still think the scariest movie of all time.
Hands down.
Yeah, absolutely. I will agree with you 100%. And Mika, your first horror movie, very different, was
Night of the Demons. Oh, yes. Yep. 1988's Night of the Demons. Yep. I remember that one being my first one. Yes.
Yep.
What an
and I watched that one. I revisit that one quite a bit. I just love that one. Today is not scary to me, but it scared me.
Well, it's funny how different these movies are too. Like I consider The Exorcist to be the scariest film ever made, while I consider, you know, The Exorcist is dark and sad and scary. Night of the Demons to me is more light and fun and scary. So I mean, they're both horror movies. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, I would love to be a part of Night of the Demons. And fuck that would still suck. But while you're watching Night of the Demons, I think you can still have fun. I don't know anybody besides Beetlejuice that watches The Exorcist and has fun. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's funny every time. And that does not happen for me. So I started with Kira last time. So Mika, I'm gonna start with you this time. Do you remember who you were with the first time you had seen that movie?
Oh yes, I was at a slumber party. And I think one of the my friends at a slumber party put it in, like had it, and we just threw it on. And I can't remember what age. I think I was probably around.
Well, it was VHS.
Yeah, VHS. So I was super young.
A Blockbuster.
Yeah, wasn't supposed to be watching it, but it was at a slumber party with a group of friends, and mine, needless to say, no one got any sleep that night.
Hey, you want to come over for a sleepover? We're going to learn about demons. So, we know how old you were and who you were with, but Kira, The Exorcist is a film that has stood the test of time. Now, if you watch it now for the first time, it's probably not as scary because it's a little slower for a younger audience, that has Google at their fingertips. When we first seen this movie, we didn't have all the enhancements. And again, I'm not bashing anybody, but we didn't have the enhancements in technology that they have today. And this film fucked us up as kids. Now, do you remember which scene it was, Kira, that affected you the most from The Exorcist?
So now this was very hard, Kim, because in the movie in its entirety, in my opinion, has there's numerous scenes that for me were pivotal in terms of scare factor. The main scene that stood out to me specifically was when the priest actually goes, not the priest, I'm sorry, the doctor makes the house call and actually goes to see Reagan, and she's literally doing the crucifix, and that whole scene in of itself was disturbing. And then she does the full head twist on the bed. That scene in and of itself was jarring just because it didn't let up. It went from one intense viewed scene to another one, and that was unbelievable. Putting Ellen Bernstein, the mother's face, as well, it was just so unnerving for varied reasons. So that scene is the first one.
And it's funny because I've told this story numerous times, but I grew up in a video store. My parents owned a video store growing up, so I was able to have any movie I wanted at my fingertips. And The Exorcist was the only film my mother shut off. And at the crucifix scene, my mom was like, "Nope, too much." And I didn't fucking know. I was like, "Oh, she's stabbing herself." I watch Jason do this shit all the time, but I don't get the issue. Little did I know what she was really doing.
Right.
And I think that's why The Exorcist will always stick with me. It'll always have that stigma because no matter what I'd seen before, my mom never shut it off. But with The Exorcist, we grew up in a religious home. And, when we got to that part, my mom was like, absolutely not. I don't think it was so much, the sexual part, because that was going over my head anyway. I think it was the message that was being portrayed in that moment,
I agree, Ken. I agree. I think there's something too about that movie in terms of the parallel between the ability of it to happen in real life, that possession and spirituality and faith. That itself is so scary. And that's anything possession, in my opinion, it just has another depth to it.
I think it can happen. So,
and there's proven cases in terms of exorcism, possession, and so that makes it a whole nother level.
The light to me in that is, if there is a possession happening and that demon is real, that means God's real too. So we're gonna be okay.
Very much so.
You can't have the devil without the Lord, and you can't
exactly that good versus evil.
Work that way. Exactly. You got to have the yin and yang. So you always got to look at the positive to little girls getting possessed. Exactly. So we know which scene affected you the most from The Exorcist, Kira, but I want to bounce back to the Night of the Demons here for a second. Mika, what would you say your favorite scene from Night of the Demons is?
Favorite scene? My favorite scene is when Angela, it's Angela and Sal in the front room by the fireplace, and the Stigmata song comes on the radio, and Angela does that dance. That's one of my favorite scenes, and it's so scary.
Switch over.
Because you see the switch with the blinking lights and the music. That is such a freaky scene. I was kind of like Sal, let me get the hell out of here if I was there. You know what I mean?
Looks like it's time for me to be hitting the old dusty trail.
So fun scene, awesome scene, but that is scary too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those scenes, especially as a kid, when you see that switch over, we don't understand completely how cinema works. So it's like, what did they just do? How did that happen? She's a monster. I definitely understand where you come from there when you see that switch over as a kid, especially. Without knowing how special Hollywood is and how, you know, cuts and stuff like that. Like it's amazing to see stuff like that as a kid, not understanding how that
what's happening.
Yes, because that face, like especially like the gliding through the hall, that really scared me. It stayed with me like for days and weeks after. Like I just kept seeing that gliding and that demonic face. That like it was so scary. Like so that was Angela really scared me.
It's funny because I think that's still one of the most memorable scenes in that whole movie. Like when I talk about that movie, that's one of the scenes that always comes up because it's just such an impactful scene at that moment. So we know what scene affected you the most, Kira, and we know, Mika, what was your favorite scene. But let's bounce back to The Exorcist. One question I've been asking lately is, would you like to see your first horror movie remade? Now, as we know, they are doing a requel to The Exorcist. Blumhouse has picked it up. Is this something you're excited about? With it being more of a requel and not a remake? Is this something you're going to be checking out, or is this something you're going to skip out on?
So you know what? I am. Mika knows, like, I don't usually like any remake. Well, within reason, there's a select few of requels, prequels, sequels that I like. I will definitely watch it because I do feel that there have been gems. So The Evil Dead is a good example of something that I can think of where I loved the remake and what they did with it. I feel like The Exorcist provides an opportunity to tell the story in a way that can work for the masses, and if done right, it can be exceptionally well. So I think I'm open to it and have to see how they tackle it.
And what I love is the way that I've gathered intel on it is it's going to be much like Halloween 2018. Like it's going to take place years after the events of the first. Now, what I love about this and what people, you know, we always look at, they're doing a remake or a requel or a sequel. That's stupid. But what people don't understand is when Halloween 2018 came out, views and sales of Halloween 78 spiked like 700%. So, I mean, one positive that we can look at with a remake, requel, sequel, prequel, whatever have you, even if it sucks, it doesn't take away from what the first one did. And not only that, but it's going to educate a younger audience that may have never seen the original Exorcist to go back and watch the original Exorcist.
Yes, that's actually a really good point, Ken. Yeah.
That's one thing that I've always loved. Like, maybe this movie won't turn out so well, but I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that, and at the time of recording, this is brand new. How many people I've talked to that have just watched Firestarter for the first time because the remake just came out.
Yeah, they got the new.
So,
that's very true. Yep.
That's one positive. That even if we don't like what they're doing with the remakes, requels, sequels, it is shining light on the original and giving a new audience a chance to go back and revisit these to compare and maybe catch up on what they missed the first time. So we can always find a positive in the horror world. And that's one positive I try to cling to is the fact that we're giving a younger audience an education on the films that we grew up with to show them what we went through as children. And now they'll get to see Linda Blair throw up pea soup for the first time. So when you watch it, I hope you love it.
Yes.
So now that question was for you, Kira. So now this next question is a little tricky. And now, Kira, since I asked you the last question, Mika, this is going to go to you. And Kira, you're going to get to be a little bit of a cheater, pumpkin eater, because you're going to get to think on this question.
Okay.
Mika, you're not. You're going to have to think off the top of your shoes.
Right on your toes.
As we all know, right now, they are filming, at the time of us filming, they are in the midst of filming Scream 6. But I got my little buddy Ghostface to come off a set real quick to ask you a question. Mika, what's your favorite scary movie, Mika? So, Mika, what is your favorite horror movie of all time?
See, it's always a toss-up. I go back and forth because there's always two. But I'm just going to narrow it down and just say, I'll say Alien. Yes, that's
the original favorite. Or Alien?
Yeah, so I love both, but I always say part 2 is like a fun one, like more so fun. It's still scary, but I like part 1 in terms of the buildup, because you don't really see the alien right away. So that tension, that atmosphere to me is really, really scary in part 1. Where part 2 I love as well, but just for different reasons.
And it provides it gives you an opportunity to really learn about the creature in more depth.
Yeah,
I feel like it really plays on.
But I'm going to go with the first one.
I look at Alien and Aliens the same way I look at Terminator and T2 Judgment Day. Like any given day, each one can be my favorite of the bunch.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
That's a good example. Yep.
Yeah. Well, because like for me, Alien and Aliens is the same as Terminator and Terminator 2. Like Alien is a total horror slasher.
Yes.
Aliens is more of a action horror.
Yep.
Terminator is a total horror slasher.
Yes, I say slasher.
T2 is a total horror action movie, like with more action emphasis. So, and I'll fight anybody to the death. The Terminator is a slasher film.
It is a slasher. He's trying to find like every Sarah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he hunts them down. Like total slasher. And he's one of my favorite slashers, to be honest with you. Like he's just a badass. Like I need Sarah Connor. She's not here. I'll be back. He drives a fucking car to the police station. Like,
and that's an example of a part 2 that was done exceptionally well. Yes, for both films. Yes.
And T2, I can watch. I'll tell you this, and this is no bullshit. Terminator 2: Judgment Day, the first movie I ever cried at. I know now why you cry. But it's something I could never do. And he gives a thumbs up. Little me was like.
Yes, agreed.
Like that got me. So
that's a good one. That's so good.
Yeah.
Great films. Love the Terminator films. The first 2. They had a couple of gems after. And then Aliens.
Yeah.
If people ask me what the best sequel of all time is, the first 3 that are popping up to me are Aliens, Terminator 2: Judgment Day, and Evil Dead 2.
Like good one.
Yeah. If you choose one of those 3,
I agree.
I can't argue with you. Like for me personally, I'll say Evil Dead 2 is my favorite. But if someone said Aliens is better than Aliens, I can't make an argument there. Like you're right. I can't argue.
And that was kind of my toss-up because I was like, "Oh, Alien." So I kind of like what you said, Ken. It depends. They can switch. But for different.
Ask me tomorrow. Ask me in 10 minutes. My answer might change because I might get.
Get away from her, you bitch!
In my head, I'll choose Aliens instead.
Please. Those one of the best scenes.
Well, Kira, I've given you long enough to be a cheater. What's your favorite scary movie, Kira?
I don't know. Actually, going to be.
You know of it.
What's going to be
It's going to be the Exorcist because what I will say is, again, I 100% love the Alien franchise. Like Mika knows this, and it's an enjoyable film. And I actually revisit and rewatch that film more often, of course, than The Exorcist. But in terms of the scariest film, it hands down is The Exorcist. It's a film to this day where even if I rewatch it, I'm unsettled, I'm unnerved, and there is a piece to it that has always been scary to me just because of the realism there in terms of that actually being able to happen. I feel like a lot of horror slasher films sometimes are not necessarily things that you have to worry about happening in real life per se, although we do have our own horror atrocities that occur. This one is something that unsettles me in a different way, and it plays with faith and spirituality and what you believe in and the power of faith. So very much scary in my opinion.
And I do got to say, and for repeat viewers, I'm sorry you got to hear this again, but The Exorcist affected me in 2 different ways, because it affected me as a child, you know, watching what another child was going through. And I'm sure as young ladies, you know, you could relate to Reagan a little easier than I could.
Right.
And then I watched The Exorcist as the father of little girls, and it affects me in a completely different way than it did. You know, as a kid, it's like, fuck her, she's gone, burn the house down. You know, as a dad, it's, you know, take me. You know,
well, exactly. Think about that, Ken. I said, even Ellen Bernstein's character, the mother, that vulnerability, that helplessness, actually going to the doctors and trying to garner an answer and figure out what's going on.
What about when they're in the room and help me comes on her stomach?
Oh my gosh, that scene, yes.
At that point, you know, like she's still in there. She's suffering, and that's my girl. That's my daughter. That's my heart, my soul, you know, like my everything. And I can't help right now. Like, so as a parent and as a child, there's 2 different scares that The Exorcist gives you. And that's something I can appreciate and respect about the film. Now, since The Exorcist is part of a bigger franchise, there's now 5 films at the time of recording in the Exorcist franchise. Which film in the Exorcist franchise is your favorite?
The first. And like there's no, not even a 100%. There's you already know this. It's not a 3. it's not even a question for me. There is something about the original, like the basis in which something starts. And I think that any film that comes after just elaborates on that story arc. And for me, it sets up the stage, it builds the character arc, and then you understand where the next films are gonna go.
And I know a bonus too. I said probably she picked one because she loved Ellen Bernstein.
And ironically, and Jane Fonda is someone else that I admire. She turned down the film. Multiple people they asked declined to do this film. And Ellen Bernstein was ironically an unknown, even though she was acting during that time. Alice in Wonderland was an unknown for the most part. Linda Blair, and they nailed it and were iconic in these roles. So yes, I am a little biased, but the film is exceptional.
I'm gonna say this with the Exorcist franchise. The first one, hands down, the scariest movie ever made. The second one, hands down, the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life. The third one is my favorite of the franchise.
She likes the third. Yeah,
love the third one. It's got real genuine humor. You know, when he's like, "Do you smell me, Father? I haven't had a bath. There's a fish in my bed." You know, like then you have genuine, like one of the best jump scares of all time. You have the woman crawling on the ceiling, which I think is one of the best looking effects.
Yes.
And Brad Dourif's performance as the Gemini killer is hair-raising. That performance is just great. And I've always been more attracted to slasher films. It's just something that me personally, I've always been more attracted to them. And to me, The Exorcist 3 really is a supernatural slasher. And the saddest part of this story is I didn't watch The Exorcist 3 until 5 years ago, maybe. That was the first time I had seen it because we had seen the first one growing up and I loved it. I seen the second one and it broke me. Like the second one was like literally getting coal in my stocking on Christmas. I was like, what the fuck just ruined my day? And we had to recently, you know, I do, whenever I do a franchise ranking, I don't go on memory. I genuinely rewatch every movie from beginning to end. I still was so sad watching this movie. I was like, this is hands down. Like we did a top 10 worst horror movies. And I think The Exorcist 2, and again, this is in no fault to the direction, the acting. You could tell everybody put effort into it, but it just went nowhere. And it's such a bummer because it really tainted the rest of the. I never watched the rest of the franchise.
See, I agree. It's usually the big risk when that happens. Like,
I need to go back and rewatch too. That'd be good to kind of revisit.
I think you could revisit it, but the plot, like to me, plotless.
I will strongly recommend you not do that. Like, which is funny because have you seen The Exorcist 4 and The Exorcist 5?
I don't think I've seen.
No, we literally did 1, 2, 3 and have not watched.
I'll tell you this: The Exorcist 4 and 5 are the exact same movie. I know that sounds silly.
Okay.
But they filmed a whole movie and they did everything on it, and the studio was like, it's not good enough, do it again. So they refilmed it with a couple different scenes and a couple different plot points, same actors, same basic concept. And then that's why The Exorcist 5 never really saw the light of day until like 10 years later because it was just released on a straight to DVD. So they're essentially the same movie. But I will tell you, The Exorcist 4, it's very, I enjoy it. Like, I'm not gonna lie. And I'll say after so I don't spoil anything, but there's a big scene in this movie that literally like broke my heart.
God is not here today, priest.
So before I let you ladies go, I want to bounce back to our first 4 movies. And what we're going to do, as you guys know, we're going to rank these on a skull count. Now, as always, we're not ranking them on acting or production or score or none of the above, even though The Exorcist had a great score is dope. We are just going to be ranking these movies on how much they affected you on first viewing. So, Mika, let's start with you, Night of the Demons. What would your ranking be, 0 to 5 skulls?
Oh, well, I'll say from because I was super young when I first watched it, and I literally could not sleep without the lights off for weeks, and like could not even go in hallways that were dark. So I would say a 5 because
that sounds like a 5 scholar.
Yeah, it really freaked me out, like that demon face. Yeah, and you know, our mother was pissed because
she's already against my lights on when they don't need to be on.
So she was like, it was hard.
She's gonna watch this episode and have PTSD. Like, God damn it! I knew she shouldn't watch that damn movie.
Yeah, because
have you shared with Kim? That's so ironic. Our mother does not like horror. She doesn't understand like any fascination with it, like because we literally are scaring yourself to no end.
Yeah, but I slept with her for like so long.
No, you did. That was so funny. Yeah,
So
I can just imagine your mom talking to her friends on the phone, like, these damn girls.
I know, like, what were they watching?
What the hell they doing?
But it's so funny. Like, she let us within reason after a while watch horror, which we appreciate.
Sure.
Yeah, she never understood it, but she did give us an opportunity to start watching it more. So that was great.
I've always said this, and I gotta always put this disclaimer out there. I am no psychologist. I am no psychiatrist. I have no professional experience in this. This is just a sledgehammer opinion. I feel like the people that watch horror at a young age and get the education to go along with it are more grounded in reality when they grow up. They know the difference between fantasy and reality. They know the difference between right and wrong. Now, people that get thrown in a basement and watch horror movies with no education and no, knowledge, maybe that might affect them a little bit differently. But if you have the education, it's just like anything, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever. If you had the education to go along with it, you can do it safely, you can do it responsibly, and you can be a better person because of it. So I just feel like as long as there's the education, that's the most important part of anything. This country could use a whole lot more education right now. So we got to continue to pound in the right things in each other's heads. So again, I think I know the answer, but Kira, what would you rank The Exorcist 0 to 5 skulls?
Ken, of course, like no question about it. 5. If there could be 10 skulls, there would be 10, but 5, 100%.
Kira's gonna come at me like the Predator with the whole thing of skulls.
I know. 100%. I just feel like that from start to finish. Just I don't know if traumatized is the right word, but horrified. I'm terribly horrified by what I was witnessing. And every scene, every time you entered Reagan's room, I was preparing myself physically for what the next encounter was going to be like.
Well, and it's got, and again, I can't speak from experience because I am a boy, but as a young lady watching this movie, discovering your body and understanding what your body is, I'm sure it affects you in a different way than it does a young man.
Definitely.
I watched this movie as a young boy and I just see a demon girl. That's all I see.
Right.
That's a peer to you. This is somebody, this could be you.
Exactly.
I can't put myself in the shoes of a young lady the way that you ladies can, And again, I'm not trying to get into any sexual things, but
but understandable. I think that's a valid point, Ken, for sure. And I think that's what makes it more scary. And watching it when you think about it, watching it as a child too, you can look at that to say, oh my God, the likelihood of this happening to you.
And then I think it goes back to what you said too, Ken, about that education. So that was the good thing with our mothers. Like, so she not really a big fan of horror movies, but she would watch it with us, and it's something, a scene was kind of crazy, she would kind of,
there's more context to it.
Yes. Break it down. What do you think you getting from it?
Well, your mom was like, you want some education?
I will say, Kim, The Exorcist is a film that my mother will not rewatch. She will not watch that ever again. I think one and done. And then any possession film reasonably for her is too close to home. Like she just feels like that is opening a door, in her opinion, that's too scary.
Well, guys, the curtains are about to drop. The credits are about to roll. So before they do, there's some social media links down here that need to click, and make sure you subscribe to that podcast as well, because like I said, when they do an episode, they do their homework, they do their research, they're going to educate you and they're going to entertain you. So that's, if you want to be educated and entertained, this is the podcast for you. So ladies, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.